Alright, in this video we have a radical function that we want to graph, and then we want to find the domain and range to it. So to graph it, let's use an XY table because we don't have a calculator to use right now. And the first thing we do for an XY table is come up with some X values that we could plug in to our function that would give us corresponding Y values. And then we would plot all those points, connect the points, and that would give us our radical function graph. So first thing, what do we have to plug in for X? What would be some good X values? Well, let's not plug in just any X value because that could give us some decimal values. Let's plug in numbers for X that would give us a perfect square under the radical, so that when we actually take the square root of this perfect square, we're going to end up dealing with a whole number. So what I mean by that is, what's the smallest number that we could take the square root of and get a whole number? That will be 0. So what do we plug in for X that would give us 0? That would be -3. And what I mean by that is -3 plus 3. We're going to take the square root of that, and then we're going to subtract 4. That'll give us our Y whenever X is -3. So if we simplify this, we're going to get a -3 plus 3, that's 0. Still taking the square root of that, and we have -4. Well, Y is going to be 0 minus 4, which is just -4. So when X is -3, we know our Y is going to be -4. And then we'll eventually plot that point. Now, what is the next number greater than 0 that we could have under the square root that when we take the square root of it, it would give us a whole number? And after 0, it's going to be 1. I'll keep a track of them over here. So if we plug in a -2 for X, I'm going to put that right here. Say -2 plus 3. Okay, that -2 represents the X, and then a -4. Well, if we simplify this, -2 plus 3, that gives us our 1, and then we've got -4. Well, when we take the square root of 1, that gives us our whole number. That's just 1, and then we have 1 minus 4, which is -3. So when X is -2, we've got a -3 for our Y. Alright, let's go over here. Let's pick another number that we want to get under the radical. The next number above 1 is going to be 4. So we need to get this value under the radical equal to 4. So that means I have to plug in a 1 for X. So 1 plus 3, that's going to be 4. We're taking the square root of that and then subtracting 4. And that's what our Y is going to equal when X is 1. So if we actually take the square root of 4, we've got 2. And then we're subtracting 4. So Y will equal -2 when our X value right here is 1. Alright, so let's do a couple more, 2 more, and then that will give us a good amount of points to graph. So the next number, well, we just did 4. The next number greater than 4 would be 9. So then what would I have to make X be to get a 9 under the radical? And that would be a 6. We know that we would have 6 plus 3, that would give us 9, and we could take the square root of 9. Eventually subtract 4. So if we simplify this, we've got 6 plus 3, which is 9, taking the square root of that and subtracting 4. So the square root of 9 is 3, and then we've got -4. So Y is going to have to be -1, and that's when X is 6. The last one we want to do is, let's see, pick 16. So what plus 3 will give us 16, and that is going to be 13. So if we plug in, well, 13 right here for X, Y is going to be 13 plus 3. We got -4. So that's going to be Y equals the square root of 16 minus 4, which is 4 minus 4. So y is going to be 0 when x is equal to 13. Now that's the hard part. We can plot all these points. So -3 comma -4 is going to be, let's see, well, let's get rid of these numbers over here so I get some more room to graph. Alright, so I'm going to plot -3 comma -4. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, down 4. And that's going to be my first point. -2 comma -3 is going to be back 2, down 3. 1 comma -2, it's going to be 1 and then down 2. 6 comma -1 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down 1. And then 13 comma 0 will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then that's at 0. So we start from here, and then we got to connect these dots the best I can. And that's about as good as I'm going to get there. And that will represent our radical function. Now, we got to come up with our domain and range. So, and then you know that if you look at this radical function, since we subtracted 4 on the outside of the radical, that tells us that we're going to shift down from our 0, 0 point, our original, which would be representing this is our starting point. We're going to shift down 4, which we did, and then when we add under the radical, we shift to the left, which is going to be 3 times. So that's where you could kind of predict the graph is going to look like. Alright, now for domain, what is our value for x farthest to the left that we could go? And that's going to be all the way back here at -3. Okay, and we're going to include that, so we use brackets, comma, and then how far to the right can we go? And our x values go towards positive infinity, and they increase forever. So you always use parentheses with infinity symbols, and then we included -3, so it's a bracket. Now we check out our range. That's the last thing that we have to do. We think of how low can our y values go. And the lowest value here for y, you know, is going to be in -4. So I'm going to put that in there with brackets because we're including -4. And then the highest it can go, it increases all the way towards positive infinity. And it has no upper boundary per se. So I'm going to put comma infinity and then parentheses because we always use parentheses with infinity. And that is how you graph by hand a radical function and come up with a domain and range.